Welcome to the Yak Chat, the ultimate podcast for the everyday angler. Whether you're paddling, pedaling, or motoring in the serene waters, or casting your line into the heart of bass territory, we've got your fishing fix covered. We're about to embark on an adventure that goes beyond the surface of the water. As we count down the minutes to launch, get ready to dive into the world of kayak fishing, bass angling, and the art of turning your kayak into the ultimate angler's haven. This isn't just about catching fish. It's about the joy of the outdoors, the thrill of the chase, and becoming the best angler and dad you can be. So, whether you're a seasoned pro or just getting your feet wet, join us on this journey as we navigate the waters of kayak fishing and fatherhood. Stick around, gear up, and let's cast off into another exciting episode of the Yak Chat, hosted by Bearded Dad Fishing.
Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Yak Chat. I missed y'all, man. It's been a little while, but we're back. This is the unofficial season 2, if you want to call it that, kickoff. So super pumped about that. Like always, my name is Jay with Bearded Dad Fishing, and this is where we talk about all things kayaks, all things fishing, all the time. So we did take some time off here for a couple trips. So Juan and I were both fishing the Pan American Kayak Fishing Championships on Lake Murray, and that was in South Carolina, and that was right during Hurricane Helene, and that thing was nuts, man. But after that, I was over in northern Alabama fishing the Knucklehead Bass Fishing Championship, and that was also a blast, man. I had a fantastic time. I have a recap for both of those on my YouTube channel, so if you guys are interested in checking out how it went, go over to my YouTube channel, Bearded Dad Fishing. Like always, this podcast streams live on YouTube and is available on demand on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So if you guys are watching live, like always, we want to hear those questions, comments, and those smart remarks. If you're listening later on, make sure you drop a review or comment wherever it is that you're listening. So now that the cold weather season is upon most of us, except for you Southern boys, a lot of us in the North are wrapping up our season, right? We're putting our kayaks away. However, cold weather doesn't always mean you have to put the kayak away, but it does change up the game if you decide to still hit the water. So today we're chatting with Chuck Earls, who's the creator behind Lake Erie Kayak Fishing, as well as a guide on Lake Erie and a cold water fishing specialist. I don't even know if he considers himself a cold water fishing specialist, but I've seen some crazy videos where he's jumping in like literally like ice bath type water. So we're going to be going over some cold water techniques, safety equipment, and what not to do when you're fishing in the cold. Again, this is an interactive show. So if you're watching live, get your questions ready, as well as those dad jokes, because at the end of the show, we're going to go over the submitted dad jokes in our funny or crummy segment. All right. So before we bring Chuck and Juan on, if you guys aren't already part of the Facebook group, what are you doing with your life? Join our Facebook group, Kayak Fishing Dads. We're about 31,000 members strong at this point. And along with that, we're doing a giveaway, and it's only for Kayak Fishing Dads through the Facebook group. So we teamed up with Rogue Fishing, and we're giving away 3 of these Shield phone, tab, and tethers. These are brand new. Like, they just dropped on their website this month. So it's brand stinking new, and these things are really sweet. This takes place of the tether that they currently have, which they're going to continue to sell, but it's the silicone one that goes around the phone. Now, this one has a little tab that you put between your phone and your case, just like this. I've actually been using one for the last, 4 or 5 months, and it's been really sweet. It's just that little piece that hangs out there, and you just leave it, and it doesn't get in the way. You can still charge your phone. You can do everything without having to put it on and off. So really sweet. Anyways, we're giving away 3 of these. So I'll put the link in the description below in the show notes and on the live chat. The giveaway wraps up on November 10th at midnight. We're giving away 3. So 3 to lucky winners are going to get 1 each. So really excited about that. And secondly, if you're watching live, make sure you guys like this video, gives it a thumbs up. It helps us, helps other people find it. And if you're listening on demand, either on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever podcast platform you're listening on, leave us a review there because that helps immensely with getting the word out there. So let me bring Juan on stage. What's up, bro?
Yo, what's going on?
Chilling, bro. I was getting tired of hearing myself talk, but
You're good,
bro. It was so you were with me in South Carolina in 1 minute or less. How was that experience?
All right, so the experience was overwhelming because you don't really realize the magnitude of it all till you see everybody and all the different countries kind of collecting as everybody gets situated at the hotel, and then you get to the lake, and then you see the magnitude of the lake, and you see everybody getting set up doing that, and then you know, kind of the grind, everybody kind of keeping to themselves and kind of just trying to figure out how the fishing goes, and then the award ceremony, and kind of the build up to that, and the potential wins and the opportunities and just the vibe and the energy. So it's cool, man, and the opportunity to meet people from around the world, priceless. So
it was wild, bro. I think that was like the thing that I didn't expect the most was meeting all people and just like making those connections. You know, it was dope. I mean, we got to sit at the bar with dudes from Mexico. We got to hang out that one morning with all those guys from Venezuela. Like that was a real blast, man.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, outside of these opportunities, you don't get this, and it's cool because these are the guys that are being sent from their country to represent like the best of the best. So you're out meeting some of the top anglers from around the world, and it's cool. Like I know you did the jersey swap, which was pretty awesome.
Yes, sir.
My bad. Yeah,
no, you're good. I had to change. So Anthony just put a comment live. He's like, no mood lighting today. I totally forgot to turn off my lights and kind of like set everything up. So yeah, that's what happened, Anthony. Thanks for the reminder.
Yeah, so like that's something like I look forward to doing next year. Like this year, so I got in so late in the game that that I was barely able to get my jersey and stuff because of time frame issues and all that. But I got mine, so I only have my one jersey, as where other people had like a jersey and a hoodie. So it was cool that they got to swap out. So next year, I definitely, you know, God willing, I'm, you know, even involved. I'm over here talking all crazy, but it was cool, man.
The jersey swap was cool, bro. So I got see, I'm not gonna lie though, like my boy Alex that I got it from. See, I feel like he should be an extra large, but he got a large because I mean my guys in Mexico like to wear tight fitting things. But see, I'm not a large, I'm barely an extra large, I'm a 2X. So I put it on for the picture, but I probably gotta lose like another 10 pounds to make sure I can wear that thing again. So it's hanging up though in my closet, like real dope.
Yeah, no, I mean, and then the other cool thing was like I don't know who on our team decided, but somebody, it was sponsored by Catch. So we all got here's mine. It was sponsored by Catch. So we all got these Catch boards, but what was even cooler was for those of you who don't know, if you haven't followed, we brought home the bronze baby. So in doing so, it was dope because the Puerto Rico team, all of us took our catch boards that we got for free for the tournament, and we all autographed them for one another. So, you know, cool little, you know, takeaway.
Little memento.
Well. Yeah, it was dope,
bro. Yeah, for sure, man. All right, so we're gonna get Chuck on here. Yo, what's up, brother?
Hey, what's going on, guys? How are you?
What's going on, Chuck?
Good, man. Yo, thank you for coming on, dude. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me.
No, for sure, bro. So I've seen your stuff on Facebook, and that's kind of how I got acquainted with your videos. I think the very first thing I ever saw, bro, was I just saw this big bearded dude jump into like an ice bath of water with like a I guess a dry suit on.
Yeah, dry or wetsuit, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it was actually a semi-dry suit. Which the difference between a semi-dry suit and an actual dry suit basically comes down to the gasket system. So full dry suit has latex wrist gaskets, latex neck gasket, so you're kind of being strangled the whole time. Semi-dry suit, it's a little bit more comfortable. It has like a neoprene neck gasket. So it's not 100% waterproof or watertight, but it's tight enough. You get a couple of trickles maybe. But that's why I've tested it, numerous times just to make sure that it was going to do the job. Because really, at the end of the day, if a piece of safety equipment is too uncomfortable to wear, are you going to wear it? You're probably going to decide to go out, without it. But yeah, that
makes a lot of sense.
That's the most important thing is just get out there, test your gear, test the dry suit, test your life jacket, flip your boat over, learn how to get back in.
Yeah, that's wild. All right, guys, we wrap up the show. That's all we got. No. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Chuck. How'd you get into fishing, and I guess like a little bit of your story?
So I started fishing. I think it was my 6th birthday, and we went to this lake in Sharon, Pennsylvania. Ironically, it's named Julia's Lake, or Lake Julia. Which Julia is my daughter's name,
Oh, no kidding.
Years back, I don't think it was named that. I'm not sure. I haven't looked back at the history, but that's where I started and caught 43 bluegill that day.
Wow.
So I was just hooked.
Gotcha.
And I've been fishing ever since. Back in 2014, I got into kayak fishing, just as a way to kind of get away from the shoreline and get out on Lake Erie without investing in a $50,000 to $100,000 safe vessel, and picked up a used kayak. Didn't know much about kayak fishing, didn't know if I would like it, so I picked up a used $450 Wilderness Systems Pungo 140, which is a sit inside. Not really the most comfortable or the best to fish out of, especially on Lake Erie on the big water.
Yeah.
But it did the job. It had front and back bulkheads, so even if I took some water into the cockpit, it was still keeping me safe out there. And I didn't find kayak fishing, man. Kayak fishing found me, because it was like the strongest drug known to man. As soon as I had it, I couldn't live without it. And that's basically what snowballed into what I do now is just going full speed at it, and I guess obsessed would be putting it lightly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
awesome, dude.
That's some big water that you're on, so it was quite a commitment for you to kind of have to. I remember getting on the water here with what I had, and I thought that was a big deal. But Erie.
Oh yeah, and I didn't start on Lake Erie either. I started on an inland lake, which actually I was there, I don't know, 5 or 6 hours ago. I had to run out there for something, and I just stopped. And unfortunately, the water is so low, but it's actually a great opportunity to, take a couple of contractor trash bags and just clean up the stuff that's usually covered in water.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, at this lake, there's tons and tons of glass bottles. So I just gave back to the fishery a little bit.
Yeah.
And came home, got ready for the podcast.
Yeah.
But, starting on that safer body of water is important, because you don't want to push the limits too fast. We don't know what we don't know, right? And Lake Erie, it's a huge body of water. It's extremely dangerous, especially if you don't know what you're doing, or you're not aware of cold water, or you're not aware of watching the horizon and paying attention to the clouds, because the forecast isn't right very often. Sometimes it's close, other times it's completely off. So you have to build up that spidey sense, and just kind of slowly. I'm not saying don't push the limits, but don't be crazy about it. Push it a little bit, get a little bit more knowledge, a little bit more experience, and eventually, you can get out there safely and understand what's going on.
Yeah. So how far into your kayak fishing journey did you start on Lake Erie?
I fished inland for about a year, and started getting on Lake Erie, and I would hit the tributaries and stuff.
For those that don't know what that means, what does that mean as far as inland, and that stuff for the new guys trying to get acclimated to kayak fishing and all that, trying to get situated to a bigger lake?
So inland and offshore. Offshore, you want to kind of think of like ocean. Lake Erie is freshwater, so it's salt and shark free, but it is 250 miles long and a little over 50 miles wide. So it's well, put it in perspective. My past neighbor who'd moved to Florida 30 years ago, he got lost on Lake Erie for 3.5 days.
Wow.
Before they found him. So, when you're fishing offshore, there's so many more preparations and so much more knowledge that you really need to stay safe out there, because it could cost you your life. Inland, I mean, it's not really that big of a deal. It starts pouring, you're 100 yards from the shoreline, and you just get off the water and wait for it to pass or whatever. On Lake Erie, if we're 2 miles out, which generally we're a half mile to 2 miles out, like, you got to know it's coming, because you got about an hour to get back, under human power. But that's also why I have the Torpedo electric outboards. It's not because I'm lazy and don't like exercise. I used to paddle, or I used to paddle the Pungo out there. And then I got the Old Town Big Water 132, which love that boat, still have it. I'll have that thing probably till the day I die. And I would pedal out there for 40, 50 miles each week. So it is doable without a motor. But going back to 2 miles offshore, the average person's going to move on a kayak about 2 miles an hour. Of course, you could go a lot faster, but if you're traveling for 2 miles, can you do that fast pace for an hour straight? Especially with a headwind. So you want to think, okay, 2 miles an hour. If I'm 2 miles offshore, that's an hour to get back. And that's really where the danger comes, because if you don't know it's coming, it could be bad.
Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible, man. I've seen Lake Erie, like never fished it, but I've actually flown over Lake Erie before, and it looks like an ocean. You can't, even from a plane, you don't see the other end. Like it's incredible.
It has its own weather system, right?
Yeah, sometimes it seems like it. It's very interesting to watch, and that's one thing that is very important if you are going to do any kind of offshore stuff, or even ocean. In the oceans, you definitely have to factor in the current and stuff too, because there's certain currents that something happens, you're 4 to 6 miles away like that. But it's really cool, especially on the bad weather days, to just pull open the radar and just watch it, periodically see what's going on, and you'll see these weather systems, and you'll start noticing patterns. So then next time you go to look at it and you're like, oh yeah, it's going to do this, and your buddy's like, yeah, bullshit. And you're like, all right. And, the time comes and he's like, holy crap, it did that. And a lot of times what will happen is it will come into the lake, and as soon as it hits like Avon Point, or even sometimes when it comes into Toledo, it will hit that lake and actually spread apart. And ironically enough, when we were up for the Hobie Worlds, not competing, just supporting everybody out there, the weather pattern was very similar to Lake St. Clair as well. So you can use that knowledge and that understanding, and that's what I mean about the spidey sense. You want to become good at it, focus on it, research it, and not research, but study it as much as you can.
Okay.
Well, how do you what are you using to keep track of these weather systems while you're out there?
So I use a bunch of different things. I have my primary apps, and then usually I'll use something to kind of verify it if I need to. But primarily I'm using like AccuWeather for the radar. I do use the WeatherBug app. Mainly that's for the lightning map, because that has a live lightning map where you can look and you can see, okay, I have lightning 5 miles away or 10 miles away, or there's no lightning. Who cares? The fish are already wet. We're not going in. Right.
Yeah.
And for like wind forecasts, I like to use Wind Finder. And it's just something that I've paid attention to for many, many years. So I understand how to interpret it. I kind of know what to expect. And that's really what you want to do, is like pick one that you like and just focus on that. Most of them generally have the same. And then you can use the second one just to verify, hey, is this first one, full of it, or is that actually going to happen?
Gotcha.
And another thing I use is the live Lake Erie weather buoys, which they do put them away in the wintertime so they don't get destroyed. But most of the year you can just Google it, depending on where your location is, like Lake Erie Live Weather Buoy Lorraine, and it will pop open like real-time data, every 10 minutes. So it'll tell you like your air temperature, your water temperature, your wind speed, your wave height, the frequency, and that's another thing is, when you look at the ocean and you see those waves coming in, you have a frequency, those waves, I don't know, 4 seconds, 6 seconds, 8 seconds apart. Same thing with Lake Erie. So when you're looking at those wave forecasts, you want to pay attention to that frequency as well, because if it's close together, it's going to be kind of a disaster. But if it's far apart, it's definitely manageable. Like you've probably seen the video with me and Jeff Little. There's probably 6 to 7s out there, but I mean they were almost 10 seconds apart. So it was like being on the ocean in big rollers,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Crazy, man. So before we get into the cold weather thing, like the cold water talk, define cold water so that people understand we're on the same page, because we got some guys here that are in Florida and cold water to them might be 60 degrees.
Yeah.
Well, cold water is 60 degrees actually.
Okay.
That's the magic number. I'm sure everybody's heard of the 120 rule, which is, the air temperature plus the water temperature equals 120 degrees. Then you don't need any thermal protection, supposedly. That rule is, it's BS. Don't even pay attention to it and just focus on that 60-degree water temperature. Reason being, if it's 80 degrees outside and the water temperature is 40 and you don't know how to get back in your kayak, you're still going to die. So 60 degrees, at least you have the ability to swim the shore or, survive for a little bit if need be. In 40 degrees, you got 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the person, but yeah, that's
wow. Okay.
That's the line.
Yeah, that's good to know, man. What's some of the biggest mistakes that people make when they get into cold water, and why don't people take it seriously? Because you do see, unfortunately, a lot of people lose their life.
Yeah.
And it's people that, they fish these waters quite often, and I think it's part of the, I've never flipped my kayak type of mentality.
Yeah.
Sometimes
they don't even wear a PFD in those colder months too. Something as simple as that.
You would be amazed how many people I see go out on Lake Erie without a PFD. And I don't think people are trying to be unsafe or stupid or anything like that. I just think that maybe they just don't know any better. Sometimes in life things teach us, like wearing a seatbelt or wearing a life jacket. Well, sometimes people don't get those lessons, right? So I try to be understanding in that situation. But at the end of the day, you got to think about it. It's not really only our life to play with. When we make a mistake and we are careless, we hurt and then we die, but our family hurts for the rest of their lives. So think about that. It's at the end of the day, it's your life and your decision. Think about the impact of that decision. on your family and just make the decision according to your life. And that comes down to having a dry suit and having a PFD on, and wearing it. I think it happens a lot because water is so beautiful and it looks so inviting. It's sitting there. It looks so beautiful. Maybe it's a warm winter day, in Ohio, we get, sometimes we get 4 seasons in one day.
Yeah.
So, it could be like January and it's 60 degrees outside and people look at the water and they're like, wow, it's beautiful. It's a nice day. I'm going to go and enjoy myself. They have no idea that water is just sitting there waiting for the opportunity to kill them. And I think a lot of it, that's what it is they just, they don't know what they don't know.
Sure.
And I was there. I mean, my first season, I was out there without a dry suit. I didn't know any better. And the best thing that could have happened was we actually got ice that year and everything froze up. And I'm like, well, what do I do now? Like I want to get on the water. I'm dying to get out there, but everything's froze. I started doing the research on the cold water and found the dry suit that I wanted to get, which is it's a Coquetet Hydrus Supernova Angler. Had the suit for I think almost 9 years or a little over 9 years.
Wow.
It's a great suit. I like to beat things up because I want to figure out where the weakness is, especially if I'm going to recommend a piece of gear. I want to put it through the paces, right? And especially when it comes to safety equipment. So with that Coquetet, I mean, I didn't really take very good care of it. I just rolled it up in a ball, threw it in the trunk, and that's where it lived until the next day I went out. And I think it was like 5-ish years in, my wrist gasket started to get, dry and cracked because I didn't treat them. Generally, you're supposed to put like the 303 protectant just once or twice a year, and just work it into that latex wrist gasket to keep them soft. Obviously, I did not. And $60 later, and about 20 minutes of my time, and I was back, ready to go. So they are repairable. My third trip out, I did put a hook through it. That was I remember that day. I still remember that feeling because I'm like, man, I just spent $800 on this suit. I got 3 trips and I just put a treble hook through it, and it's supposed to keep you dry.
Yeah.
But the cool thing, you just take like some painter's tape and put it over the outside and aqua seal the inside, and it's good as new. I mean, that spot is still, watertight.
Yeah. Well, now that you bring up dry suits, and I'm glad you did, we had a couple questions here from viewers asking about dry suits. First of all, is dry suit, can you explain a little bit of the difference between a dry suit and a wetsuit?
Yeah. So a wetsuit obviously is designed to be used wet. The way that it works is a wetsuit will basically trap a layer of water in between your suit and your skin. That way, the next time that you go in, no cold water can get in that suit because the warm water's already got the suit full. The downside of using that for kayak fishing is you're not jumping in the water. So that suit is empty. As soon as you fall in that water, you're still going to get that, that rush of cold water. Now your body might warm it up fast enough, with that suit on. So you might, you might still be okay. I know a couple guys that they like that route. And, at the end of the day, hey, if it works for you, it works for you, right? If it keeps you alive, that's the only thing that's important. Couple downsides of a wetsuit is you got to pee in it. So plan on wearing it home, peeling it off in the shower, all sticky and nasty. And it's restrictive. So if you're paddling or you're pedaling, it's going to be restrictive on your movement. And the other thing is the different thicknesses in the wetsuits. They're for different temperatures. So like on a warmer day, maybe with the water's 55, you don't need as thick of a suit as you do when the water's 35. And that comes down to the fact of like, yeah, a wetsuit is a little bit cheaper, but you need 3 or 4 of them, which works out to be the same price as a dry suit, which, dry suits keep you dry. They don't keep you warm. So that's, you can adjust your underlayers depending on that water temperature or that air temperature, and make yourself comfortable.
Yeah. So you can layer up under a dry suit.
Yep.
Okay. So, and as far as the dry suits go, you said there's a semi-dry suit and then a dry suit. Do you recommend one over the other, or do you recommend a specific dry suit for guys that are maybe starting or wanting to start out?
I think it really comes down to the individual's need and their comfort. The icy video on my YouTube channel where I'm jumping into that icy water, the guy that's with me, Jason, in the yellow suit, his is a full dry suit. And it's got that latex neck gasket, which you feel like you're being strangled all day. Can you take that or can you not? And at the end of the day, you don't want to get lightheaded out there and have something happen. So you got to think about it. Am I going to be able to handle that, or should I maybe go with a semi-dry suit? I can cinch the neck down. My PFD is going to keep my neck above water. I know how to get back in my kayak within a half a second. It works for me. And then once you get it, just get out there and test it. And if you can find a local shop that has dry suits in stock, definitely support the local guys. At the end of the day, think about where would we be if they weren't there, right? We'd have to wait for stuff. We couldn't just go drive somewhere. Hey, I want to go talk to some local knowledge. Unfortunately, most people don't carry dry suits. So if you can't find anything local, Amazon is a great option. That way, if it doesn't fit, you can just ship it back, get a bigger size. The important thing is stick with the reputable brands. Stay away from the cheap Chinese knockoffs. They're trying to capitalize on the fact that people are becoming more aware of dry suits. So they're flooding the market with these cheap suits. And at the end of the day, if that suit fails, you're dead. So spend the extra $100, get a reputable brand like Kokatat, Mustang Survival, Level 6, NRS. I mean, these companies, they built their reputation on building survival gear, especially Mustang. That's what the Coast Guard uses. Most of the Coast Guard and the rescue authorities.
Yeah. That's great information. Because I've seen a huge rise in now with the use of like Temu and Shein. Like there's a lot. You can go on there for some pretty cheap kayak fishing gear, like nothing like high end. But if you just want some, some tracks, some things like that. But they're actually selling like these knockoff PFDs as well. Like I've seen the Chinook, the NRS Chinook knockoff on there for like $20. And obviously they're not the same one. They're not Coast Guard certified. They're not none of that. So it's super dangerous.
Hey, it's okay to save money, but don't skimp on something that's going to keep you alive and get you back to your family.
Exactly.
Speaking of saving money, so we talked about the dry suit. The underlayers are also a requirement, right? And anybody that's in the outdoor space, they know that underlayers aren't very cheap for good ones. You can spend just as much in your underlayers as you do your dry suit. Absolutely, Phil. I told him that a few days ago. Phil's actually new to kayak fishing. He got his kayak, I don't know, about a month ago.
Okay. Awesome, man. Congrats.
But sorry, that derailed me.
No, you're good.
You were talking about the you got it or no?
No, go ahead.
You were talking about you had just mentioned I'm lost.
You lost your train of thought.
Yeah. I know you were just mentioning about the dry suits,
the knockoffs.
Yeah, the knockoffs.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Oh right, the underlayers. So one thing that you can do for underlayers is just go to like a thrift store and just look for the right material. You're going to want to go with Wool, polyester, nylon, fleece, anything like a synthetic fabric that still has warming insulation properties, even if it gets wet. Definitely don't want anything cotton, even a little bit. You know, the cheap thermals that you get from Walmart, they're 50% cotton. Don't use them out there, because as soon as you start sweating under that suit, you're cold. It's not going to keep you warm.
That's true.
So, you know, you can save some money like that. Nobody's going to see the underlayers ever. You know, as long as they keep you warm, who cares what brand they are? Who cares what they look like, if they're stained or whatever?
Yeah. So all polyester, no cotton on your underlayer base.
Right.
Okay.
Or like wool or something.
Yeah, wool, polyester, nylon, fleece, stuff like that. Wool's really good. Merino wool is really good. I haven't tried them yet, but Jeff Little just got some, I think they're alpaca socks.
Oh, I love alpaca socks. I got a pair.
And those things, I mean, you can stick your foot in the water, you know, and pretty much stay warm.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, they're super soft, even just to have around the house. Like, I love those biggest socks.
I gotta check that out.
Yeah. So Irene asked about the choices between a 2-piece and a 1-piece on the dry suits.
I've never personally wore a 1-piece. My buddy Jeff Little had a 1-piece a few years back. I think it was a 2-piece a few years back. It was NRS. And basically, like a 2-piece, what it is, it's kind of like wading bibs, and then you have a dry top that goes over it, and the bottom and the top like fold together, so they kind of lock. Okay. And they do stay pretty dry. I don't think they're 100%. Just like, you know, a semi-dry suit is not 100%. But they do stay pretty dry, and they do keep you safe. You know, at the end of the day, if you go that route or any route, go out there and jump in the water, jump in the cold water, test your underlayers, test your suit, test your body. You know, you want to see how you're going to react.
How do you suggest the best way for somebody to go ahead and do that in semi, safe, you know, in the same, you know, because, you know, they want to test the product, right? They want to make sure it's working, but they want to be safe at the same time. They don't want to, you know, you don't want to make that your last test.
So the first time that I tested mine, I went to just a beach down the street, and brought my daughter with me. You know, the nice thing about a beach is I can walk into the water. I'm not just jumping in and trying to swim to a dock. You know, you kind of want to work yourself in slow, because if you jump in like I did in the icy video, obviously that was not the first time I've ever jumped in that cold water. It can have a huge effect on you. It can kind of reset your central nervous system from the cold, and just kind of, you know, put you in a state where you're like, hold on a second, what's going on? You know, it can, if you're not wearing your life jacket, and you go, like, you stay under the water, you'll involuntarily gasp and swallow or breathe in cold water into your lungs, and then you're going to drown. You know, it's one of those things you just got to get out there and, you know,
ease into it.
Would you say walking in to a lake or something like that would be the best idea for somebody else to do?
Yeah, definitely. And don't do it alone. Make sure you have somebody, bring a rope, you know. Okay. Just having somebody on shore is not going to save you if you're in the cold water. Do you expect them to, you know, come in after you? You know, you got to bring a throw rope, maybe bring some dry clothes, maybe, you know, hand warmers or something like that. That way, after you get out, you can warm yourself. Number one rule: always check your relief zipper. That's the zipper down below your waist, you know, for when you need to use the restroom. My first time out, I didn't check my relief zipper, and it's got like a 2-click system. So you get it most of the way shut, and then you have to pull it and get it over the dock. So I thought it was shut. I'm walking in the water, you know, and I get below that, or the water gets above that, you know, and I start running out of the water, and my kid's like, "What's wrong, Dad?"
You felt that?
Nothing. So always check that relief zipper before you do go in there.
Okay.
But yeah, a safe place like that, even a boat ramp that's maybe not slippery, like a, you know,
Yeah.
um,
And you just want to tie off somewhere that's obviously that you could have some good anchorage, and you kind of want to hold that in case you need to pull yourself back out the water.
you mean as far as like the kayak itself?
Like, are you referring to like a tie off, like
When you walk in, like tie yourself to something, right?
You
what are you
can,
referring to? Yeah, okay.
So you can pull out.
You can tie something to yourself. At the end of the day, any kind of tethers or ropes gonna, you know, kind of interfere with what you're doing. You can get tangled up. So if you are gonna tie it to yourself, just get yourself an NRS safety knife, strap it to your PFD. That way you can cut yourself free if you need to.
Now, I was thinking more like if you just had it tied up somewhere offshore and you just kind of walked with it in the water free from you. That way, in case, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like something to help pull you back in if you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Or maintain
You
balance,
can
because
definitely,
depending on, because if you can't, especially if you can't see what's going on as you walk into the bank, if it's like cloudy.
you never know where the holes are, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad idea. I mean, you could take a rope and put a little piece of pool noodle on it, you know, up by the handle. That way the rope always floats,
That's a smart
and just
idea.
kind of keep it with you. That way, if you're unfamiliar with the water and you do step in a hole or something, yeah, that's actually not a bad idea at all.
I like that. I like that innovation there with the pool noodle to keep it.
Oh yeah, keep it afloat.
Yeah, that's what's up.
I do have a rope on the front of my kayak, so when I'm practicing, you know, I'm offshore. I'm not necessarily close to shore because, you know, I know for a fact, like, it's not, you know, you don't practice to get it right. You practice so you can't get it. You can't not get it right. Right.
Yeah.
But I have maybe a 10-foot rope on my bow that I tie to the dock with. But when I jump off, that rope being there, you know, a lot of times, like, that's the first thing that you can get to, and at least you can get to that while your boat's being pushed away.
Yeah.
And that's the situations I'm trying to simulate when I'm doing that stuff. Is, you know, even me, I mean, everybody, like, there's things that we just don't know what we don't know yet.
Yeah.
So
Now, Chuck, is there a difference between immersion suit and a dry suit?
there is. So an immersion suit and also I'm trying to think of the ones that the survival suits that they have on the big ships.
Okay.
So those are basically designed, if the ship's going down, you put it on, and hopefully you're going to make it until somebody finds you. You're not swimming, you're not moving anywhere. It's very restrictive.
Oh wow.
It's, you know, it's just designed to basically sit there and wait for somebody to rescue you.
Do you float with it?
I believe there are some that do have flotation, especially the ones that people use for ice fishing.
Okay, like the float suits. I've heard people refer to those.
Yeah. The important thing is the water going to touch your skin or not? You know, if with a dry suit, it's actually has a barrier between that cold water and your skin. With some of these suits, it works kind of like a wetsuit. When you go into the water, you know, it lets the water in and your body warms it up. But it's so bulky that you're just kind of floating in place, holding on.
Yeah. Okay. And you mentioned like that involuntary breath that you take in when you hit cold water. What's up with that? And I mean, I've heard it before, but for a lot of people, including myself, because I've never jumped into cold water, like, you can't really comprehend your body going into that type of state.
And you know, it's crazy. I think, does it happen regardless of it being cold or not? Because I've fallen into water and just the shock of it happening. I got water. I didn't swallow it, but I got it in my mouth.
Oh yeah. It can. And, you know, we talked about that 60-degree water temperature. Well, in most houses, the water coming out of your cold water, your cold faucet, is 50 to 55 degrees. And I mean, that's very cold for us, right? It's kind of like just like jumping into a pool that's 70, 72. You know, it shocks you for a second. It takes your breath away. But when you're in cold water, there is no controlling it. It's a weird feeling. So what happens first is you hit the water. Within the first second, you have involuntary gasp reflex. So you just, and you fill your lungs with air, or if you're not wearing your life jacket, you just filled it with water and you sunk to the bottom. They basically call it the sudden disappearance syndrome. And that's what happens when like somebody falls out of a boat in cold water and they never resurface.
Wow.
Wow.
Within that same second, your blood pressure is massively spiking because all the blood is rushing into your core, you know, to get away from the cold water that's away from your skin. So if you have any cardiovascular issues or anything like that, there is a potential there. And that's within the first second. After that, you're going to go through 2 to 10 minutes of hyperventilating.
So you can have a heart attack in that same moment.
Oh yeah,
as a byproduct of just the.
Yeah, just from, you know, your blood is trying to get away from that cold water as fast as it can, and that massive spike, you know, it could definitely create some issues. So the 2 to 10 minutes of hyperventilating is called the maximum intensity cold shock. It's just like jumping into a cold swimming pool, only 10 times worse. I don't know if you've seen the video where we were on the New River, and I made a mistake and I flipped over, going through some rapids. Well, that water temperature was it was probably 50 degrees. And I mean, the water wasn't very deep. You could stand in it. That's no excuse. I didn't plan on going there. I went down to North Carolina to help out the hurricane people. And Wade from Yak Attack told me he was going to the New River to do a river cleanup and help Timmy Dixon. So I said, why not? It's on the way, right? Well, when I went in that water without any protection, dry suit, of course, I had my life jacket on. Your body is trembling. You can't get out of the water fast enough, you know, and you're just,
Yeah. Wow.
You can't control it, you know, and that's really that's really where it gets dangerous, because if you're doing that for 2 to 10 minutes, that means you're in that water for 2 to 10 minutes. At the end of that, you might not be able to use your hands anymore. Your feet might not work. You know, your brain might be going foggy. And eventually hypothermia, you know, is going to kick in and you're going to fall unconscious.
Wow.
I know, like, I've had situations where, like, you know, you get so cold, you start involuntarily shaking, and then like your chest will get, you know, your chest will hurt from, you know, does that happen? All that'll happen too.
Oh yeah, your chest, you know, your back, your spine is hurting because you're shivering so hard.
Wow. So have you experienced any type of like dangerous situations out there in your time of kayak fishing?
Look at that grin.
You know, like I said, we don't know what we don't know, right? And a lot of my lessons come from that fact. It's just not knowing what you don't know, and you get out there and you find yourself in situations where you're like, wow, I should have known this. One of them was I was out in the big water, and that was more of like a complacency thing, I think, because we had went out in the morning and we launched about a half hour before the sun came up, and I had checked the forecast the night before, you know, so 5 hours prior, 6 hours prior. Nowadays I check it like every 30 to 60 minutes some days, but always right before. So we get out there, you know, and we're about a half mile out, and I look to the west and I'm like, that looks like a storm cloud. You know, the sun's just starting to come up. I pull open the radar and you know, it was a storm cloud. So we had to get off the water, and I went home. kind of with my tail between my legs, like, what the heck, this was my only day to fish. And I sat there and watched it, and I found an opening. I think it was between 2:00 and 11:00 p.m. So I'm like, all right, I'm going. I told myself I had to be off the water by 11. This was before I set any kind of timers or anything like that. And the sun started going down. It was unbelievable, just beautiful, breathtaking. Totally forgot about the time. The sun went down, all the boats left, and then Lake Erie erupted around me, and I'm like, oh shoot, it's 11:00, isn't it? So the wind direction was actually coming from the direction of where my return was. So I was fighting the wind the whole way, and it was pushing pretty hard. It didn't feel like I was making much progress, and that was the only time where I thought, I might actually have to use my alternate return point, because that's one thing on big water. If conditions change or the forecast is wrong and you're fighting the wind back and you can't make it to that one, shift your direction, go to a different return point. Maybe the wind helps you get there a little bit, or maybe you can actually make a little more progress, and then call an Uber or whatever. Just get off the water. So in this situation, I just basically kicked 90 degrees towards the shoreline, which was straight south. The wind was coming from the southwest, pushing northeast. So just shifting, I can make it to the shoreline, and then I had the shoreline protection to make it the rest of the way back. That night scared me. I mean, it was pitch dark. I don't know if you ever been 2 miles offshore on Lake Erie in a kayak by yourself. But it's you gotta control your mind for sure, and that's really the number one thing is mindset. You just got to tell yourself, hey, I'm gonna make it no matter what. Just got to keep pushing.
And what time of year was this again?
Oh, that was summertime. Yeah, it was like July.
Okay. I know I was at a tournament one time. It was over the summer months, and it was on a bigger lake. Jay, this was at Knock. A tournament way back on Knock, and I'm getting out to my location, and it's early morning and it's dark, and you can't see anything, and it was nothing but like carp and like stuff jumping around me. But dude, let me tell you, I was scared and I was spooked, you know what I mean? Because I couldn't see what was happening. So between like the ducks flapping and coming off the water, the carp jumping, and the few squirrels in the trees on the shoreline, dog, I was so spooked out by everything I was hearing. And it was like,
you thought something was coming for you.
Yeah, and it's like, because and we're up north, so we don't really have nothing to worry about. Down south is a whole nother thing,
Right.
But yeah, and being up north, knowing that there's not much to worry about, dude, I was still, you know what I'm saying? So I couldn't imagine being in the middle of a big lake like that and just,
essentially the ocean. That thing is
The only thing that's missing is all the wildlife.
Yeah, the worst part about it really is like you can't see where the waves are coming from.
Are there seals in? I don't know if that's a stupid question.
No, but there's supposed to be bull sharks.
Oh yeah, see.
There's there's old wives' tale, bull sharks and Nessie.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Is that where that's at?
I've never seen Nessie. Never seen aliens out there either. They probably seen me, but I was too busy fishing. No, but that story. So the lesson that came from that day was set a timer. Like I knew the wind was coming at 11:00. I should have been way off the water before then, but I got distracted. Pretty sunset. It wasn't the fishing, because the fishing did I didn't catch my first fish until the wind came in.
Yeah.
Just set a timer a couple hours before. and maybe an hour before. That way you have enough time to get back before that weather system comes in or the wind or whatever. But having it a couple hours before, it gives you the ability to now see, is it changing? Because it might come early, anticipate that. Always expect the worst case scenario, and plan for that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So when do you determine that it's too dangerous to go out? Like, have you made that decision where you've been like, yeah, maybe no?
As far as wind or temperatures?
Both.
Yeah.
So there are days, of course, on Lake Erie that it's a no-go. I mean, there's 10-foot plus waves out there sometimes.
Wow.
And, sometimes it's like a bathtub effect, and you get in a bathtub and you start making all kinds of, splashes, and the waves don't know which way they're going. Well, if you're in 5-foot waves and they're just all different directions,
Yeah.
there's one of them that's going to hit you just wrong where you're going to go over the side. And now you're in the water. The water's moving. What's around you? Are you close to the shoreline? Are you going to get thrown or bashed against the rocks or the seawall? So pay attention to that as well. As far as temperature, when we start getting ice sheets on the lake, that's when I call it. And really it's because everybody's heard about all the ice fishermen that get rescued on Lake Erie every year because the wind blows the ice sheet away, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I go out, say I launch out of the Rocky River and I go 2 miles out, well, now I come back and there's a mile-long ice sheet in between me and the Rocky River. Wow. Now what do I do? Yeah. And I've never experienced that situation, but it happens. I mean, boaters, it happens to them sometimes, where they won't be able to get back in. They'll have to go to a different marina or a different ramp. So that's when I call it during the cold weather season. During the any other time, really it's an experience thing. With clients, 2 foot or less, unless they're like brand new. If they're brand new, it's 1 foot or less. I don't want them to be far out of their comfort zone especially if they don't want to be. At the end of the day, you're coming out to learn, you're coming out to get the experience. If this is your first time on Lake Erie, you need to get comfortable with it before you go into, 1 footers, which, like it sounds like a lot, but I get you out there in 2 footers and you're like, this is it. You're like, bring on the bigger waves.
How do you go about finding the fish in those bigger areas of water? A lot of what people see, especially it's funny because you'll see these tournaments and these guys will cover all this water to go beat a bank up. Very few people know how to fish offshore, and people kind of tend to think like, man, that guy's fishing at like 150 feet. A lot of people don't realize the kind of contours that are out there. So how do you situate that? How do you find that kind of water? How do you figure that there's even fish in those kind of areas?
So the first thing that you got to do first and foremost is to catch fish, you got to think like a fish, right? 90% of all the fish are going to be in 10% of the water. We just have to figure out what 10% of the water it is. And that starts with, your Navionics app, or, your underwater mapping. That way you can look at your contour lines and see, all right, what areas are actually going to hold fish? If I was a fish, where would I want to be? And offshore, it really comes down to like what the bottom structure is, or what the contours are. Do we have like close lines, lines that are close together that have represent a steep drop off, or is it more of a gradual drop off, or is it, a point that comes out like this, or, maybe you have like a crotch that comes here and then a point that comes out there, and in that crotch, it's real steep of a drop off. A lot of those locations are generally going to hold fish. Again, you got to think like a fish. If I was a predator, do I want to run a marathon for a Twinkie, or do I want to walk into a restaurant and have somebody bring me a full course meal? Like running a marathon, I'm going to burn up, the energy from 100 Twinkies just to get that one. So it's unsustainable. But if I can like hang out here in the deeper water and wait for something to come by and go out there in the current, or in the waves and get that meal real quick and then return back. So you're looking for those kind of ambush structures, and just start shallow. A lot of the boaters, they run over fish to find fish. And I do it too. I feel the most comfortable 30 to 50 foot of water. So the first 30 foot, sometimes I talk myself, I'm like, nah, we're gonna go out here. But just start shallow. Look what see what you're looking at on your map. I mean, on your fish finder, and adapt accordingly, because it's going to be different day to day, especially on big water. You have a lot of moving parts. It's with Lake Erie, the more that you learn, the more you realize you don't know. So you got to think about it like this. If there's like, say, a northwestern blow, where it's coming from the northwest, that's going to be pushing bait fish somewhere. The walleye, the predators, they're going to be following that bait fish. So a lot of times it's just looking at what was the trend of the forecast, where's the water moving everything. And if you just kind of focus on that, you probably find some fish.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, because I mean it's tough, because it's not like you have. I mean, it's a little easier now with things like the torpedo,
Right.
But it's still hard, and depending on the body of water you're on and the kind of limits the tournament offers, you got to be, pretty decisive with where you're going to end up.
Oh yeah. That's when I did the Lake Erie Walleye Trail. I would usually plan on covering 30 to 40 miles in an 8-hour tournament. And I mean, I am moving at full speed, so I had extra torpedo batteries with me, because I mean, if you're burning, full speed, that's like pedal to the metal. You're going to burn through that tank of gas, right? Sometimes it paid off, sometimes it didn't. Anything can happen on tournament day. But you start picking up on certain scenarios and certain situations, and really that's why I enjoy the tournament scene. I could care less about winning or losing. I'm only out there competing against this guy right here, myself. The rest of the people, like, hey, we're family. We're out here enjoying the fishery, right? If you win, I'll be the first person to clap for you. But it's the knowledge. If you put yourself in a challenging situation like a tournament, and don't go in to win, go in to be better than yourself and to learn something, right? We either win or we learn. We don't fail. There's a lot of things that you'll learn a lot along the way that you don't realize are extremely valuable. Like, a lot of my tournament wins really is just covering a lot of water and seeing a lot of fish and having a plan. I'm planning a week before, sometimes longer, and I have each spot planned out, and I have timers set to, like, hey, if I'm on this spot and I'm doing good, I need to know when it's time to move on to the next spot, and then I can make a decision. Is it, am I catching big enough fish to stay here, or do I need to move on? And really that dials in the tournament days so that you will make it back on time and not get disqualified.
Gotcha.
Making the most of your practice.
Yeah.
Right.
Granville brings up a great question. When you're doing that kind of fishing out there, what are you doing? Are you trolling, or?
I do a little bit of everything. Trolling is the most productive most of the time. And really it comes down to just covering water. I mean, it's a huge body of water. So like I said, 90% of the fish is in 10% of the water. Well, if I'm fishing that other 90% of the water that doesn't have any fish, I'm not going to catch any. So using trolling, not just as a method to catch fish, but also as a method to locate. locate them, and also make sure they're active, because there's a lot of times on Lake Erie, and any body of water, where you're marking fish constantly, but you can't get them to bite. And sometimes on Lake Erie, that full screen of fish is not walleye, it's not sheephead, it's not catfish, it's shad, because we have 25-inch shad. So that's why they're not biting. But other times they're just not active. So using the trolling methods, you can cover a lot of water and then find that small active pod. Sometimes I've experienced where, you'll cover 5-10 miles and it'll only be a quarter mile or, a quarter of a mile of fish that are actually biting. So, you're trolling along, boom, there's a fish, mark a waypoint. Boom, there's another fish, mark a waypoint. And then nothing. Well, after about a half mile to a mile, you're like, wait a minute, I'm going back to that spot. So you go back over it the other way, boom, there's another fish. And you're like, all right, I'm going to stop here and cast or jig, or sometimes, drift fish. I like to do it all. But, it's really about being the most effective with the limited amount of time that we have.
Okay.
Yeah, that was great info, man. Cause I'd be wondering that too, like how, because we don't fish. I don't fish a lot of deep water. I mean, I get excited when I pull a fish out of 20 feet.
Me too.
I did that down in Alabama. Pulled a little spotted bass. He was like maybe 8 inches, but I still pulled him out of 20 feet, and I was excited about that.
Oh yeah.
Like, deep water for me is like 15 to 18. So like when I'm doing anything around that, whether I'm deep cranking or working a deep dive or jerk bait, and I hit something, I think I'm KVD in the middle of wherever, you know what I'm saying? So
right,
you're such a power fisherman, bro.
Yeah, it was. I went out and fished with Jeff Little on the Chesapeake. I don't know, probably 4 years ago, and I'm used to using line counter reels. We're dealing with deeper water. I can't really guess. I need to know where my bait's running, because if the fish are in 10 foot of water, if they're in 30 foot of water, I got to make sure that I'm in front of them. So with the line counter reels, it allows you to kind of get your bait in the strike zone, but also duplicate it to other combos. So I get out there, and Jeff's got some spinning rods, and I'm like, we're trolling with these? He's like, yeah, just cast it back. Like, just cast it back. Do you count? But we were only in 10 foot of water. So at the end of the day, like, it really didn't matter where you put it, because if you were too far back, you were dragging on the bottom and snagging, and if you're a little bit above that, the fish is probably going to see it. But when you get into that deeper water, you really have to, it's worth the investment just to get a line counter, calibrate it, make sure you calibrate it. When you put that spool on there, don't cut it. Get your 100-foot tape measure out and calibrate that line counter. And that way you can actually figure out what's going on, and a program. Like, you can go home and say, hey, yesterday they were biting on flicker minnows 100-foot back flat line. Maybe a perch color or something like that. Well, tomorrow you go out and that's the first thing that you try, because that's what they wanted yesterday. And maybe it works. Maybe you have another stellar day. Maybe they switched over and they won't even touch a crankbait now. They only want worm harnesses, which does happen sometimes in the summer. But it just it opens up the scientific side of things. On Lake Erie, people think of trolling as kind of boring, and it is when you're on a charter boat. When you're an angler, when you're a serious angler, it's very boring, because like, we crave the details, right?
Yeah.
On a charter boat, the guy's like, hey, go reel that in. And it's like, well, you already did it. You already did all the work. Like, I don't want to reel it in. And it's great for people that are just getting into it, or maybe, they're not that obsessed with fishing. But for somebody like us, it's the money's in the details. And when you start trolling out of your kayak, there's no charter captain doing everything for you. I mean, you are the charter captain at that point. So you're paying attention to your direction, to your contours, to your speed, to your depths, your baits, all those different factors. And it just it makes it extremely fun and really really interesting.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite fish to catch?
Lake Erie species, I would say probably a steelhead. Steelhead they are so fun, so crazy. They fight so hard. They're just like little silver bullets,
Gotcha.
But half the year I can't get to them because they're 15, 20 miles out. And that's crazy.
Wow.
A lot can happen 15 miles out on a kayak.
Yeah.
I would never.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine.
Wow.
I really enjoy the walleye too, and really I love
big walleye over there.
Fight. Oh yeah, very big walleye.
Real big walleye. I've seen some of those thumbnails. So
wow. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I love steelhead for the fight. Walleye, most of them don't put up the hardest fight. I love walleye for like all the intricate details. That's what I enjoy, is like figuring everything out.
Are they a hard fish to catch, you feel, the walleye? Or
I mean, they can be. At the end of the day, it is Lake Erie, right? The walleye capital of the world. So there are days where you could fall out of your boat and come back with a limit.
Wow.
There's days where you can hit them in the head and you're not catching a fish. But you just, that's fishing. You just go out there with whatever you can be to be prepared. At the end of the day, I'm not going back to the truck to get a different bait or anything like that. So I bring everything so I can troll, I can jig, I can cast, I can run some worm harnesses. Like if they're going to bite something, I have it. And hopefully I have enough time to get to it,
Gotcha.
And if I go home with no fish, I came back with a ton of knowledge because I'm so in tune with trying to figure that out.
Yeah. You had mentioned something earlier when the show first started. You had mentioned low water levels, and that's kind of something we're experiencing over here too. And I'm noticing that's kind of the trend along the Northeast with these super low water levels. I know one of the things I'm doing that I saw was kind of cool. So going up to the lake, you could see more than you normally would, because more of the lake is exposed now. So using those opportunities to try to get a few more waypoints and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
So how does that work? Because from what I understand, I think we get all our water from you guys, kind of, in a way, right?
Yeah. And where you at?
So we're in PA.
Oh, okay.
Like we're in like just north of Philly.
Okay. Yeah. So with Lake Erie, because it's connected all along the Great Lakes, it's kind of like a river. So we do have water level changes, but it's not like the inland lakes where you look and it's 20 foot down.
So you don't have that kind of stuff.
Well, we do.
Yeah.
But it's caused by it's called a seiche or a seiche, something like that. Seiche.
Okay.
Probably wrong. But what that is, the wind blows so hard. Going back to the bathtub, Lake Erie's basically a big oval bathtub. When the wind blows so hard from the west, it eventually pushes a lot of water into the east, and it'll create flooding in Buffalo over there.
Wow.
And it'll create, it was a couple of years ago where people were walking around by the islands because we lost so much water. I mean, they were walking on the bottom of the lake. Going back to your thing, that's a great opportunity to get out there and find some spots that, you don't really know exist.
Yeah.
But we do have that.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
We do have that situation, with the winds doing a little bit with our water. But interesting fact about Lake Erie compared to all the other Great Lakes, Lake Erie changes its water every 2.6 years. So all the water in Lake Erie is replaced every 2.6 years.
Wow. That seems really fast for a big lake.
Yeah, compared to the others, you're talking hundreds or thousands of years.
So what do you mean? Like, does that due to the fact that it kind of flows through a giant river system?
Well, see, it comes down, through Lake St. Clair and then into the Detroit River, and Detroit River spills into Lake Erie. And then Lake Erie spills or feeds into the Niagara River, which spills over Niagara Falls. So it's, all that water that's coming over Niagara Falls, it's got to be replaced with something, right?
Wow.
And I mean, I don't claim to be any expert on the water flow and all that stuff, but
I think that's where we get the Susky from, is from the remnants of the Niagara Falls and all that.
Oh yeah.
I think, I'm not sure. I don't, I'm not, I had to put one of those little swan papers. We'll have to send one up to you and see where, you know what I mean?
See if it gets here.
Yeah, I had to go chill in Harrison.
Put a little air tag on it.
Yes.
Which, speaking of air tags, the Lake Erie walleye, as well as a bunch of other species, have tags in them.
Oh,
so you can go on YouTube and just search Lake Erie migration patterns. And there's one real short clip, and then there's the same clip with actually more of an explanation with like Fish and Wildlife, where they break down the tracking of the walleye. Which, going back to like finding that fish, if you're looking for the main school, you can pop up that video and see, okay, well, it's June, here's where the majority of the fish are, and that's something that, consistently for most fish, they continue to do. There are some fish that do something totally different, but that's an interesting video to check out for sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do that. My and shout out to my guy Jonathan Kerr, my sponsor out at Wife Calling Me Home. But he was telling me, and I didn't know about this either. He told me that like, let's say you get a fish in a particular area, particular spot, nice, good, big fish, potential PB, whatever the case be. Everybody takes a picture. He said, pay attention to that picture. And a year from now, within a 10-day period, either before or after, or right around that time period, you should be able to go around that same area and not potentially find the same fish, but fish are creatures of habit. You know what I mean? So if they went through
pattern, right?
Yeah. And I was like, for real, you could scope out a pattern like that? And he was like, oh yeah, absolutely. So yeah, that was something I learned, and was just wondering if that applies as well, because that's a river system idea. I don't know if
Yeah, and Lake Erie is a weird body of water. For example, like this year, the water took an extra week to a week and a half to warm up above 60. So it was like third week, almost into the fourth week of May, which usually it's mid-May, 15th. So the water took a little bit longer to warm up, but the spawns were earlier, and they were like 2-3 weeks earlier. And each year it changes.
Yeah.
So I guess the best answer to that would be my buddy Ross Robertson says it's a game of chess and we're playing checkers, because we're just making moves. We don't know what the move's going to do, long term. Yeah. But
and I think it's something to say, like, with even with like the environment's changing, because this is the first time I've seen in our area over my years of fishing some of the waters be as low. We have, Jay, have you seen those pictures of Lake Ontanali?
No.
Man, I'm talking.
I've seen some of the river pictures though. Like, it's like people are wade fishing the entire Susquehanna.
Wow. Oh, really? Well, I haven't seen that. So apparently this is supposed to be the water supply for Reading, like the drinking water. But there's like parts of it because it connects through two rivers, so it's like it's in between two rivers. But like the one part of it, it's like bone dry. Like it looks like, like those like National Geographic things where like the mud gets all crackly and like all canyon looking. It's
Right.
like that. It's I've never.
It's
wild.
It's kind of a scary situation, right? I mean,
I feel like Lake Mead, California in this right now.
I'm 15 minutes from Lake Erie, so I always have fresh water. If worst case scenario, if there's a situation where I need fresh water, I have it right there. But the further away from the Great Lakes that you get, the less and less water there seems to be. And I guess because I don't see it, I'm not aware of it as much. But man, I don't know. I mean, how do you fix? I mean, I don't think you can fix it. It's out of our hands. But what's the next plan of action? Because taken from the Great Lakes, if you're not in the Great Lakes watershed, you're not welcome to our water. That's actually law. And we're not, I don't want to be mean, but we're not going to share it. You should have took care of your water. No. No, seriously. No, but, I don't know. It's something that I've thought about many times because, what happens when people run out of water?
Yeah.
True.
I don't know, man. I've never seen it like this now.
And it's a weird contrast because it's like our side of the United States dried up as where it's now the first time in how many years that the West Coast has had water. So it's
typically the West Coast that dries up and they're hurting.
And I mean, it probably is just like it's a game of chess and we're playing checkers. I watched a video on it was like hundreds of years ago on Lake Erie, just the longevity of the fishery. And 100 years ago we had different species. I think it was maybe a little longer than that. But the water temperature and the environment on Lake Erie was more geared towards like a totally different set of species than we actually have now. And I think really it just comes down to the fact that like our world is always changing. I mean, there's so much history of these things happening, with or without our influence. Right? So I just think it's, the world's changing the way that it's supposed to be. And we just got to figure out how to adapt,
Mm-hmm. It like nature has a way of kind of hitting its own reset button.
Yeah,
true.
And I mean that's how we came about with multiple ice ages without any human intervention.
Right.
But there's just a lot more at risk now for us because there's a lot of people.
Oh yeah,
it's true. And we keep building and taking over. So.
Cool, man. Well, Chuck, is there anything you want to add, man? I know we kind of touched on a lot of different topics. I didn't think we would dive into fishing, but I'm glad that we did. Is there anything you want to add for people that might be like curious and starting now that we're in the cool weather now, like guys that might want to start getting out there? Any suggestions you have for them?
Especially if you're like a guy. I know a lot of guys kind of like go through the whole summer kind of analyzing opportunities, and then like the winter time is an opportunity for them to potentially buy something for a good price, and they may have that itch to get out, and maybe their first time out. What do you suggest for these people getting out and trying to get their feet wet essentially for the first time? Maybe just the first time cold water fishing.
The first thing that I would say is try your best not to get sticker shock when you are looking at a dry suit or make your purchase. I think the one I wear is about $850. But think about it like this. My suit's almost 9 years old. So it's cost me less than $100 a year to fish all winter long safely. So look at it like that. This is going to be an investment. It's going to be something that, you're going to keep enjoying. So before you go out there and be unsafe, think about your family, your kids, your loved ones. We're all parents here. That's why I'm so safe, because I can't imagine my daughter, having to deal with dad making a stupid mistake. So consider that first and foremost. And secondly, before you do anything, get out there and swim test your dry suit, flip your kayak over, and practice re-entry. Make sure your suit is actually going to keep you dry. And really, it's a subconscious thing, because manufacturers over here saying, "Hey, I'll keep you alive," but if I've actually physically tested it, my subconscious knows for a fact this thing is going to keep me alive. So in that survival situation, I think I would be more of a stronger mindset, because I know the suit's going to keep me alive. I've done this all the time. So just put yourself in that situation and make sure your underlayers are good. Make sure you can get back in your kayak, because, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how many underlayers you have on. If you're in the water long enough, your body temperature will drop eventually low enough to cost a life. So, first and foremost is a dry suit. Secondly is getting back in your kayak. I don't want to hear, I don't accept oh, it'll never happen to me, or I'm in a Hobie PA14, or I'm in a Jackson Big Rig, or look, I'm in a Native Titan X, and I've accidentally fallen out twice being a dummy. One time I was showing off to a little 8-year-old boy that was out with us, and I stood on the top of the black pack and short stack, and
wow,
yeah, it was kind of funny. And the other time I was picking my dog up out of the water and I slipped off the grip tape. So it's not if, it's when. So it doesn't matter what kind of kayak you have. Any kayak that gets you on the water is a great kayak. Just make sure that you can save yourself and get yourself back in the kayak. And if you don't want to do that by yourself, or if you want to do it in more of a safer environment, I am an ACA certified instructor. So we can do, kayak reentry classes. And if you're a paddler, I do paddle stroke classes and stuff like that. If you want to test your dry suit, reach out to me. We can put something together. I absolutely love getting people out in the cold water and testing their gear, because I'm there to help them work through the problems that I've already experienced, and some of it really is, you think you can get back on your kayak, and then you go to do it and you're like, oh, I didn't realize that was going to be in the way, or I didn't realize my PFD was going to get snagged there. So maybe the approach is coming on the back or on the front, so if you want to do something like that and you're close to Northeast Ohio, or if you want to travel, reach out to me, and we can definitely set something up. Get you out there in a safe environment and get you the skills that you needed. Aside from that, I'm fishing all year long as, like I said, the ice sheets don't form. So if you have a dry suit and you want to get out for some monster walleye and some big steelhead, just reach out to me. You can head over to my website as well. It's LakeErieKayakFishing.com. Or you can give me a call. My cell phone is 216-296-9157. Book a trip, ask me a question, especially on cold water. I mean, at the end of the day, I am fortunate and lucky and blessed and grateful to do what I do. So please, if you want to stay safe on cold water, send me a message. I'll answer your questions for you. I'll help you be safe and make it back to your family. Like there's no charge for that.
Cool. That's awesome, man. And I'm gonna put all your information too, for your socials, your website, in the show notes, so people can get in contact with you.
Appreciate that.
Absolutely, brother. I appreciate you. So we have, before we end the show real quick, we have a segment called Funny or Crummy, and it's where we go over the submitted dad jokes, because I'm a big fan of dad jokes. Juan likes them too, so we go over a couple of the dad jokes. We got like 4 or 5 of them today.
I got one too that you already know about, because I just texted you about this. But my wife actually gives me all my jokes. She works at the hospital, and meeting all the old people that she has to deal with, for these old guys, they come out left field with these things left and right. So anyway, this one is, how does the hamburger introduce his wife? Meat patty. I love that damn joke. All right, go ahead. All right.
It's funny.
I almost gonna contain myself when I asked. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's a good one, bro. We got Ray Johnson. Says, why do you never believe a carp story? It's fishy.
Ooh, it's fishy. That's good.
And let's see. Oh, another one from Ray. I don't get why Marvel doesn't use the Hulk to advertise more. He's basically one big banner. Bruce Banner, if you're a Marvel fan. All right, Granville with a joke. Granville, he said, who hides in the bathroom at parties? The party pooper.
That's good. I like that. The party pooper.
Yeah, and last one from Ray. I asked my date to meet me at the gym, but she never showed up. I guess the two of us aren't going to work out.
Right. I like that.
Oh man, yeah, I love dad jokes, man. Even, and I say it all the time, even a good dad joke
A
is a
bad
good
dad
dad
joke
joke
is
and
a
a
good-
bad dad joke. Yeah,
Yeah.
bad dad joke is still a good dad joke.
Yeah.
So, all right, man. Well, listen, yo, Chuck, I appreciate you coming on, dude. Thank you. You dropped some great knowledge, man.
Yeah, serious knowledge and serious safety tips. Like I had no idea about the wetsuit, dry suit stuff. So super knowledgeable for me. Thanks, man.
Oh yeah. Thanks for having me on, guys. It's been fun.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, brother. So, and we'll have, like I said, all of Chuck's information, all his socials down below, as well as Juan and myself. And our next episode is going to be in 2 weeks, Wednesday, November 20th. We're talking with Andy from the Bearded Paddler as he shares this season's perfect kayak fishing gift. So Christmas right around the corner, Black Friday's around the corner. So we're going to be talking about that. So make sure your significant other is within earshot so that when he's talking about all these gifts, they know what to get you. Yeah. Just put on the TV while your wife's like, crocheting or whatever, so she can hear all this stuff.
Before we go, I'll give you guys a secret.
Okay.
So I have these two clients out of Pennsylvania, out by Pittsburgh, not far from you guys, and they're crazy. They come out with me in the middle of winter, sometimes in a blizzard. So last year, the younger guy came out, didn't have a fish finder on his kayak or anything, just very basic. We're a half mile offshore. He couldn't see the shoreline, and he's like, Chuck, how do I know where I'm going? How do I get back? I said, you just got to follow me. So he goes home and he explains this to his wife, and his wife immediately reaches out to me and she's like, hey, I want to make sure that he's safe out there. What kind of fish finder do you recommend or what kind of navigation do you recommend for being out on the water? Because I don't want him to get lost. And I'm like, dude, that's genius. Babe, I need a fish finder because it's going to get me back to the ramp safely.
Yo, for real, dude. That's smart.
That's right, guys. All right. So you guys heard it there first. You don't want to get lost on the water. You want to get back safely. And you know what? He's not lying, because even with the small Striker Garmin 4, something as simple as that, it'll leave like a little, think of it like in the movies with the kids, they leave like little trail of snacks behind them so they can find their way back home. Same exact thing. It'll leave a little trail on the water so you can get right back to the ramp.
And you could also get into the habit of just dropping a waypoint before you launch, especially if it's a new spot. A new place that you never fished, just drop that waypoint.
Like as soon as you get in the water.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
And if you don't have electronics, or it's not in the budget or whatever, you can use your cell phone, your smartphone, and just download the Navionics app. They doubled the price. It's like $50 a year. But it's well worth it. And you have the contour lines at your fingertips, whether you're sitting in your office or your couch, or you're on the water. So when you're on the water, if you don't have electronics, you can pop that open and actually see, am I on the contour line? Am I not? So cheap entry to at least get out there and get some knowledge.
Cool.
Hey, what's going on, Jay?
Awesome, man. Well, great info, and I appreciate it again, Chuck. Thanks for coming by, brother.
All right, guys.
All right, till next time, y'all. Peace and God bless.
See you on the water.